You think I'd never done this before? All right. Good evening. Let's see. So again, what we're after here tonight is healthy mobility on the shoulder, healthy mobility on the upper back. I work as a chiropractor. I definitely see a lot of people with shoulder pain, upper back pain, whether it's related to their yoga practice, their gym routine, work, sitting at a desk and posture. I have an easy scapegoat as far as shoulder problems go. But let's just dive into a little bit of anatomy that is very relevant for what we'll be doing today. The shoulder itself, consists of our ball and socket joint. We got the head of the humerus here and the socket of the shoulder, which is really part of the shoulder blade. So I think you're all familiar with the shoulder blade, the big flat bone on our back side. It kind of moves on the rib cage there. Now the only other piece that connects that shoulder blade to the rest of our body, because it kind of just floats on the rib cage, it actually connects to our collarbone here in the front. And so that collarbone and then the joint at the sternum are really the only joint, the bony joint that is kind of formed with that whole shoulder girdle. We have the connection here, which is called our AC joint, and our connection here, the SC joint. That's really what's bridging that shoulder to the skeleton itself. A lot of shoulder problems are because of either hypermobility in that ball and socket joint, and then not enough mobility in the rest of that shoulder girdle, being the scapula and the clavicle. So there's about 18 muscles that attach our scapula, that big flat bone. They hold it to the rest of our shoulder. Some of those big players, we have our pec muscles, the bicep, trapezius, latissimus. There's a lot of muscles. If you're not an anatomy buff, that's okay. But there's a lot of muscles in that whole girdle that tend to create some patterns, whether they're too tight or they're not used enough, or maybe they're stronger than other parts of the shoulder. And that kind of creates an imbalance, and that sort of leads to wear and tear or a little excessive use. And usually that's in that ball and socket joint. This is the most mobile joint in our body, this ball and socket joint here. So we want to make sure that we are using it appropriately. We have the mobility where we want it and the strength where we want it. So with that in mind, I will be referring a lot to the scapula, that part on your mid-back. From an awareness standpoint, I just want you all to think about, maybe even feel kind of where that shoulder blade is. It's kind of like a triangle shape. We have a flat side kind of close to the spine, and then it sort of makes a triangle out towards the outside of our body. Healthy movement on that shoulder. We want that scapula, like if here's my scapula right there, we actually want it to be able to glide and rotate out away from the spine. And that's a big part of what allows us to lift the arm overhead. Sometimes if we're getting really stuck in the shoulder up here, or you have pain at the top of that arc, oftentimes it's because of that scapula is sort of stuck or adhered to the rib cage in the front, and we're not getting that good glide or that natural motion side to side. So that'll be a big part of what we're working on today. Definitely a disclaimer here. If you have significant arthritis in your shoulder, if you have issues with your rotator cuff, previous surgeries, anything pinchy in the range of motion today, of course, back off a little bit, work within what your body will tolerate. A big part of what we'll be doing is big ranges of motion and a lot of movement there. So you're the one in control, just modify however you need to. A lot of this will be body weight today, just body weight movement. I will probably reach for a TheraBand. I made a note on that class description. If you have a TheraBand, that will be great to use probably towards the end of class. We're going to repeat one or two of these motions with that band in mind to give our muscles a little extra activity. If you don't have one, that's totally fine. You can still just kind of follow along without the resistance band. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. At the end of class, we're going to shoot for maybe half an hour here. At the end of class, just a little powwow. I'd love to hear your comments, questions as they arise, and certainly if anything you can think of that pertains to your lifestyle or activity, I'd love to offer any advice I can give. So with that being said, I'm going to have us start in a seated or standing posture, wherever you're most comfortable, but we're going to do just some of those awareness and range of motion exercises. So wherever you're comfortable, seated, standing, kneeling, hands by your side, maybe palms also facing your side. We're just going to warm up with some good deep shoulder rolls. So I'm going to have you just start with one direction only, just kind of work on lifting and rotating those shoulders as far as they can comfortably go. And pretty basic motion here to warm up with, right? But what I want you to do is start to bring awareness to all these moving pieces I sort of mentioned. think about your clavicle, maybe even feel it, the collarbone there in the front. Kind of see what that does as you rotate those shoulders still in the same direction. Think about and maybe even feel what that scapula is doing. Is it moving on that rib cage? If not, maybe try to give it a little extra attention. Try to gain some mobility in that whole complex of muscles and bones there. Depending on where you're at with that arc, let's see if we can make those circles even a little bigger. So it's like we're raising those shoulders up towards the ears. On the way back, we're squeezing those shoulder blades together, dropping down at the bottom of that arc, shoulders away from ears, and right back up. Do a few more of those really deep shoulder rolls. And then we're going to start to go ahead and switch directions other way, whichever way that is for you. Big, deep rolls. And I want you to think about the space between the spine and the shoulder blades. So that's kind of like if you were to think about pinching your shoulder blades together and also trying to let them separate through that motion. Sort of a weird thought there. But again, thinking about that inside border, the medial side of the scapula. Okay, we got things nice and warmed up. Last one is just going to be straight up and straight down. Okay, so shoulders elevate towards the ears. Normally really bad posture. It's the only time I tell people to do this from an awareness standpoint. We generally like it when our shoulders are down and back for postural reasons. And then take a nice deep breath. Inhale and lift up. Scrunch towards the ears. Exhale, drop them down. When you depress those shoulders down, I want you to think about trying to tuck your shoulder blades, the bottom part of that shoulder blade, together on that back side. So when you do that, you naturally will find yourself in a pretty good, stable posture here. Maybe the sternum lifting up very slightly. Take a deep breath in, lift all the way up. Think about what your clavicles are doing. They should be elevating with your shoulders. And then back down, shoulder blades are going to glide down the rib cage. One or two more times each way. Shoulders up, shoulders down. Shoulders up, deep breath. Shoulders down. Okay, we're going to bring our arms out in front of us next, straight out in front. This is kind of a tricky motion because we don't always do this. What we're going to do is work on what we call protraction of the shoulder. So you're going to reach your arms forward like you're making them long. When you do that, those shoulder blades are going to move away from each other. They're moving away from the spine. We're going to make the arms short. So we're going to pull them back and squeeze your shoulder blades together. It's a really subtle motion, right? Long arms, reach forward. Good. So we want that shoulder to get long. That scapula should be moving on that rib cage forward. And then we opposite way, we draw back, maybe lift your chest a little bit and alternate here. Now, again, this is normally when we do this cap of motion, we want to think about doing a push-up, right? Like we might be feeling like your elbows are bending. But I'm going to encourage you to keep those elbows locked out, keep them straight, and keep them parallel. Think railroad tracks with your arms. Draw back, draw forward. We're going to revisit this exercise a little later. It's very strange if you haven't done it before. But the name of this game here is that scapular mobility. We're trying to get that scapula to glide on that rib cage a little bit more. Okay, so got a little bit of a roadmap kind of laid here for us. What we're going to be doing next is getting into a tabletop position, so sort of hands and knees next. But we're going to carry over from that last exercise we just did, but now we're going to do it in a tabletop position. So I misspoke. What we're going to do is start with cat and cow, okay? The thoracic spine, our middle back, is a piece that we really need to work on keeping mobile. It's one of the least mobile parts of our spine just because of the ribs, the rib cage. It keeps it pretty stable. What I'm going to have you do is just arch your back up, thinking cat pose. We're going to drop the head towards the floor. The opposite way. We're going to just move into cow pose, arch the back, look up slightly. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but my hope is that with a little different context, you can start thinking about these types of movements in your yoga practice and how they relate to your shoulder. So move through this a few times each direction at your own pace. Make sure you breathe in or out. Each rep, your choice. Normally, this plane of motion, we have a lot of this mobility in our neck and our lower back. But again, I'm encouraging you to get this mostly in that middle spine, the harder to reach area. So if you know your lower back is hypermobile, Maybe try to use a little less of that lower back and tailbone area and more like you're arching into that upper back between those shoulder blades. All right. Now the other way, the other direction we're going to go is a little side bend here. So we're going to try to, from a neutral spine, we're pretty flat in the back now between cat and cow. I'm going to have you do a side bend to the right. We're going to try to pull that right shoulder towards your right hip. For me, I like to do this with my feet off the floor, and I kind of pivot on my knees. It's kind of like the dog is wagging its tail, right? And over to the left, a little bit of a side bend in the trunk. I just like this one. I don't know why, but you might get a little crunchy in those lower ribs. So go to your tolerance. Kind of wag the tail left and right here. So there's three main planes of motion in the spine, right? We have flexion and extension. It's kind of like what we just did with cat and cow. We have side bending, which is what we're doing right now. And then we have rotation. So that's where we're headed next. You can put your feet back on the floor. You're going to take your right hand and place it by your temple. We're going to use that right elbow as a point of reference here. We're going to rotate the spine out to the right and towards the ceiling. Lift that right elbow towards the ceiling here. Just pause long enough to think about where you're feeling this most. This should be really neutral in your shoulder and most active in your middle back. You're going to get tired of me saying that today. Middle back activity. We're going to come right back down to the floor. Maybe the elbow touches the floor. Right elbow touches floor. Deep breath in, lift back up, point it towards the ceiling. I'm going to come right back down. Repeat that 2 or 3 more times here. Just work with your breath. And again, notice where you feel this most. For some, this is going to happen in the lower back, that lumbar spine primarily. So sometimes you can just get a little more intention in the upper back. For me, I just try to think about pulling my shoulder blade towards my spine. I'm trying to scrunch those muscles a little bit. Shoulder blade to spine. One more time here. Deep breath in, lift to the ceiling. We'll come back down. Park that right hand right under the shoulder. Left hand finds the head or temple. Nice deep breath in. Deep breath in, lift up, elbow towards the ceiling. And you know the drill here. But again, let these first few reps just sort of be exploratory. As you lift that elbow towards the ceiling, see where you feel this most. Shoulder should feel comfortable. Your mid-back, your ribs should feel the most loaded here, I guess. Again, working in a comfortable range of motion. Ideally, each rep you do, we gain a little extra mobility each time you twist. Let's do about 2 more here. Inhale, lift. Scrunch that shoulder blade towards your spine. Back down. And last rep, inhale up. Good. Bring it back down. Park the hand on the floor. We're going to find a little child's pose, but with a modification here. So hips are going to go back to your heels. We're going to try to put the elbows on the mat in front of us. Pull those hands right behind your head. And we're going to try to stretch that tricep and the back of the shoulder here. So just kind of get into the latissimus muscle there, the back of your shoulder. See how well this feels for you. If you feel like any pinching in the top of your shoulders, just back out of it a little bit. For me, I have to walk my elbows away from my hips a little bit. And then as I rock back into that child's pose, I can appreciate a great stretch, the back of the shoulder, tricep and lat. I'm going to kind of rock in and out of the stretch kind of by shifting forward slightly, kind of more neutral, and then shift my hips right back to my heels with those elbows out in front. Hands behind the head. Good deep shoulder stretch. Just kind of rock in and out of that 1 or 2 more times. Then we're going to isolate one side with this stretch a little bit. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to park my right elbow only, just my right elbow. So I'm going to be kind of up on my left hand, right elbow down. A little further this time towards the front of your mat. And then I'm going to, again, try to scoot my hips away from that elbow while it's planted firmly on the mat. Then what I'm going to do is try a side bend to the left. What we're doing here is we're trying to make a outward C shape on that right side. Think like we did the wagging the tail, kind of lateral bending motion. If we bend to the left with that right elbow anchored, you should feel a much deeper stretch on that right side body. And same thing, we're trying to kind of come back to neutral, sort of straight spine, bend to the left, open those right ribs, take a deep breath. This is kind of a funky one if you haven't done it before. I hope my instructions are clear. If you're not feeling much, maybe try that right elbow away from you a little bit more. And again, we're bending to the left and trying to separate those right ribs. Let's go ahead and switch sides here. I'm going to park my right hand on the mat, my left elbow towards the head of the mat. I'm going to stick that elbow to the mat. I'm going to rock my hips back. That might be enough for you as far as stretch goes. But I'm going to encourage you to bend to the right, and it's going to open those left ribs there. I'm kind of easing out of that gently back to neutral spine. Same thing, bend to the right, open left, deep breath. When you breathe, think about that deep lungful of air opening those ribs a little bit. A little extra motion in that spine. One more little pulse over there. Good. And we're going to come back up to neutral. Shake it out a little bit. Any little movements you need between these little sets, please go ahead and do them. What we're going to do now is another spinal twist. Instead of the hand by the head, we're going to thread the needle with our arm. And by that, let's go ahead and just start. Take that right hand, reach it underneath your abdomen to the left. You're going to kind of slide it on the floor. You're going to let that kind of guide you into a little deeper rotation this time. Take a deep breath in to untwist. And now you're going to reach the hand instead of the elbow towards the ceiling. You might be able to appreciate a little more motion there. Be careful not to overextend the shoulder. Your protection here comes from thinking about trying to stick that shoulder blade to your spine instead of reaching the arm too far. I hope that was clear. Little word salad there for you. Repeat maybe 2 more times on this side. Thread the needle. Hand reaches all the way through. That might just give you a nice back of the shoulder stretch as well. So on this last one, reaching up to the ceiling, scrunch that shoulder blade to the spine. Thread it back through one last time. Right hand reaching left. See if we can park that right shoulder on the floor here. Maybe the head rests for just a moment. And see how this feels for your shoulder. Back of the shoulder, you might feel a little extra stretch there. And just pause long enough to breathe. Once or twice, good full breaths. Back up to tabletop. Wiggle around a little, reset your stance. Left hand will be moving. We're going to reach it underneath us to the right. Kind of running it on the floor. Bring it back out, reach it towards the ceiling. And again, here, make sure that it's an even combination of motion between your shoulder blade and your ball and socket joint. If it's all ball and socket joint, you might be overextending. You may have some shoulder pain. So think more about that scapula than the humerus. Thread it back through if you haven't already. Deep breath in to lift. Exhale, thread through. One more time here. Good. We'll thread it back through last time. Left hand and arm on the floor. See if you can park that shoulder down. Good. We'll come back up. Tabletop here. Last little exercise we'll do in this position. What I'm going to have you do is take your right hand. We're going to reach it up at our side, just where it's sort of parallel to the floor. Just a little roadmap here. I'm going to use the letters to reference our arm position. So think about an A, a T, a Y. We're going to be village people tonight, okay? So first one's going to be that A shape, right hand kind of by the hip. I'm going to just bring it about parallel to the floor. Draw attention to that lower part of your shoulder blade. We're going to tuck that shoulder blade into the spine. You should feel that automatically lift that front of your shoulder up a little bit. So if that shoulder's drooping down towards the floor, let's see if we can correct that. Just cinch it back a little bit. We're going to hold each one of these for just a couple seconds. Strong squeeze to the shoulder blades. Bring that hand right back down to the floor. Sweep it out on the floor to the side. We're going to find that T shape next. So lift the hand again, or the arm rather, out to the side, parallel to the floor. Cinch that shoulder blade into the spine. This should feel very active in that mid-back area. Brief pause. I don't think I said this either. Palm is facing the floor on this. Good. Bring the hand back to the floor. Sweep it a little headward. Think about like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, sort of on a face clock here. And then lift it up. We're in that sort of Y shape now with one arm. Brief pause. Hold it there. Bring it back down. We're going to repeat that cycle 2 more times. Start by the hip. Lift the arm up. Tuck it back. Hold. Think about that space in the front of your shoulder. Where is it pointing? You should have some openness there on that front pec area. Bring it back down. Sweep it out to the side. Capital T. Lift the arm. Again, very active here. Squeeze that shoulder blade. Just letting gravity kind of do all the work here for us. Back to the floor. Sweep it up. Capital Y. Lift it up. This is when, again, mindful of any pinching here. Don't have to go higher. Higher is not good here, so think parallel to the floor or less. Good. Set it down. One more round on this side. Hand goes back to the hip. Bring it up. We want space in the front of the shoulder. Squeeze that shoulder blade. And this time, this last set, instead of putting the hand back on the floor, we're going to keep the A shape and just bring it right up into the T shape here. So just sweeping it still parallel to the floor. Tug that shoulder blade and then sweep it up. Think capital Y shape. I hope that all makes sense here. I can't see some of you. Good. Put that right hand back on the floor. Very nice. Take a brief moment here. We've been in that tabletop shape for a while, so just roll those wrists around a little bit. Be nice to them. If you need to, you can do a fist instead on this last set, or a little like block under your hands perhaps. So when you're ready, we'll do the left arm tabletop. Mindful of wrists. Maybe do a fist if you're feeling sensitive. You're going to lift that left hand behind us right at the hip. You know the drill here. Tuck that shoulder blade down nice and firm. Brief pause. Back to the floor. Sweep it out. Capital T. So it's straight out to the side here. Squeeze. Good. Back down and up. Think capital Y and or an 11 o'clock position. Good. Hold this one here. Hold. Good. Back down. We got 2 more rounds like that. Back to the hip. Lift the arm. Squeeze the shoulder. Make sure there's space under that front part of your shoulder, pectoral region. Back to the ground. Make sure you're not holding your breath here. Out to the side. Capital T, lift up. Squeeze. Good. Down to the floor. Should be feeling a little burn back there, I hope. Back up. Capital Y. Lift and hold. Good. Bring it down. We got 1 more set here. I'm going to encourage you to skip the lowering part. If you need to, of course, go ahead. When you're ready, though, set your stance. Neutral spine. Lift that left hand by the hip. Palms face the floor. Or palm, singular. Tuck that shoulder blade. Slowly sweep that hand in air. Not back up to capital T. Straight away from our body. Hold. Good. Back up. Capital Y. Hold, hold, hold. Good. And set it down. Very nice. Okay, guys, we're going to change position. Good work. We're going to lay on our side next, okay? I'm going to have you lay on your right side when you're ready. All right, we'll need a little bit of space here. What I'm going to have you do is grab something from my head here. So what I'm going to have you do first, put your palms together out in front of you. You're going to bend your hips and the knees. We're going to call this one open book. It's another thoracic rotation exercise. Be mindful of the shoulder joint. Sometimes when we do this, let me just demonstrate it first. We're going to turn the trunk open and to the left. We're going to try to get that left hand to the floor. It might not go all the way. That's okay. Palm to palm, deep breath. Open. Now take note of how this feels on your body. This should feel, again, mostly in the spine. We're trying to kind of keep those knees on the floor. If you feel like your knees pull up, that's okay if that has to happen for your comfort. But again, I'm going to encourage you to keep those legs kind of glued to the ground. Left hand opens up. Try to get it back here. And again, your attention should be at your shoulder blade. If you have shoulder pain, you can bring that left hand down closer to your hip, more like that A shape. Take a little stress off the shoulder joint. We're going to do about 2 more of these good, deep, open books here. Again, healthy combination of spinal mobility and shoulder mobility. One more time, open it up. And then we're going to pause when we're back there. So again, we're kind of in this sort of full spinal twist here. And then what we're going to do is a sort of a snow angel with our left arm only. So that left arm, as long as this is comfortable for your back, we're going to sort of sweep it on the floor from the head to the hip. I'm going to try to promote a little pectoral flexibility in the front of that left shoulder. Probably hard to see what I'm doing there on the camera. My left arm moving, just sweeping on the floor. My palm is facing up. Pretty straightforward motion here. If this doesn't feel like much is happening, what I'm going to encourage you to do is sort of kickstand that left hand up on your fingertips. So when you bend your wrist, fingertips on the floor, you're going to feel a little more in that forearm, upper chest, maybe the clavicle. And the last thing, I'll have you keep your head turned to the right. And then try to maintain that. Again, this is kind of like a half snow angel while we're in a spinal twist. A lot of stuff going on here. But especially in that upper range, you should feel a deep forearm and upper shoulder stretch here. So one more sweep with the left arm. Fingertips kind of on the floor again. Think like little kickstand there. Good. Bring it back down. We're going to roll right to the back here. We're going to reset for the other direction. So you're going to be laying on your left side next. Hips and knees are bent. Palms are together out in front of you. Deep breath in. Open that right hand and arm to the right side of your body. A little too close to the wall here. Good. And again, take notice. Where do you feel this most? Lower back, upper back, shoulder. Modify as you need to. Trying to do this mostly in that capital T arm shape. If capital A feels better for you, go there. Let's do about 5 good open books here. Breathe once per rep. So we are engaging that thoracic spine and our rib cage. We do want them expanding and contracting each time. We want that motion of respiration so that we get as much mobility as we can. And, you know, oxygen's good for you. All right, one more time. Right arm goes back. We're going to keep it there on the floor. Modify this twist if you need to. If it's a little much on your lower back, you can kind of unwind a little bit. I want to kind of keep my legs over to the left. Right hand is moving through that snow angel pattern. So we're going to sweep it from the hip to the head. And again, see how that feels initially. Palm faces up at the ceiling. Encouraging you here to bend your wrist so that your fingertips are on the floor. Palm is now facing away from you. And this gives you, again, a little more work in that upper limb. If you don't feel much going on here or any of my instructions are confusing, bring this up after class. I'll show you another great way to attain this with a little less twisting, a little more focus in the shoulders. So don't be shy if you have questions about this later on. 1 or 2 more sweeps here. Finish with a good deep breath. Okay, we're going to roll right to our back from there. So kind of a neutral spine, less twisty now. I'm going to have you put your feet on the floor. So, you know, knees are bent, hips are bent. We should feel kind of nice here now. What I'm going to have you do is take your arms in the overhead direction. Make a capital Y shape with your arms. Capital Y. If that doesn't feel great on the shoulders, think capital T. The motion here, what we're going to be doing is pulling your elbows down into your ribs. So, sorry, letter analogies are just so easy to make. We're going to kind of make a W shape with our arms, but it's kind of an awkward W. We're going to lift the chest and squeeze our shoulder blades together on the backside. Palms are still facing up. Go ahead and relax all of that and extend your arms back to that capital Y shape. Let everything relax. Let's kind of make that a fluid motion now. Pull elbows down into your ribs. Think W shape. Chest up, shoulder blades feeling strong back there. There's almost a little space kind of between between your shoulder blades, maybe at your upper back there. So we are kind of letting the spine arch a little bit as we do this. Let it relax, reach back out. Long arms, capital Y. 3 more times like that. Pull them in. If you can imagine that lower angle of your shoulder blade, that's again, we're trying to pull that down and back close together. Sternum lifts. Relax, long arms. Back to Y shape. 2 more like that. Deep breath. Pull them in. World's most awkward W shape. Feel kind of like you got the chicken wing kind of going on here. T-Rex arms. Inhale, go back up. Capital Y shape. Last one. Start with that deep breath and then pull in. We're going to hold this one an extra second or 2. Should feel very active in the middle back there. Good. And then let it relax. Shake your arms out. Maybe put your hands by your hips. I'm going to practice those shoulder shrugs here again. So you're going to reach your hands towards your feet. We're going to get the shoulders away from the ears when we do that. And then shrug them right back up. Pull those shoulders into your ears. I never tell people to do that. We really don't like this posturally. Reach back long, hands to feet. Shrug them back up one more time. Again, we're just thinking about mobility here. What is moving? What is not moving? I think this, we got one more thing to do with body weight. You're going to reach the hands straight up towards the ceiling. It's that long arm, short arm exercise we did earlier. So again, kind of strange because we often don't do this in our daily life. I want you to try to raise your arms towards the ceiling. Think long arms. It's going to be very subtle, maybe a couple inches at most. And then we're going to draw them right back down to the floor. You're going to feel the back of your shoulder find the floor. And then we're going to try to, again, sort of arch the back a little bit, squeeze those shoulder blades together. And then do the exact opposite. Reach towards the ceiling. Arms getting a couple inches longer. And squeeze them right back. When you do that, again, it should feel like you're trying to wrinkle up your yoga mat behind you, kind of like squeezing those shoulders together. Let's do that 2 or 3 more times. And as you do that, look at your arms. They should still be in a parallel shape. Think railroad tracks with your arms. Reach them up. Draw them back. Squeeze shoulder blades. 2 more times. Reach up. And squeeze. Last time here. Long arms, reach them up. And pull back. Wrinkle that yoga mat up. Chest lifts, shoulders tuck. And we'll relax. Arms can be heavy. While we're here, why don't we just do like a little gentle spinal twist? Maybe just drop your knees left, drop them to the right. Just kind of give our shoulders a brief break. I think we'll do one more thing. I have so many plans, as always, with these types of classes, but I might just be a little short on time here. So again, just kind of finish with a little side-to-side rocking for your lower back. And then this last piece, if you have a TheraBand, go ahead and reach for it now. You can still follow along and do this with body weight. You do not need a band. I'll have to do a whole nother class on TheraBand exercises for your shoulders, I think. I wanted to kind of keep this more simple body weight and mostly mobility based. We're definitely doing some low-key strengthening. This last thing we'll finish with, though, I'm going to have that band between my hands, just kind of a medium tension. It's nothing too crazy here. Arms are straight up towards the ceiling. And I'm going to do a sort of a chest pull. I'm going to pull that right to my chest, arms back towards the floor, ending in that capital T shape. All right. Inhale as you come back up. Exhale as you pull that band apart. When you finish this position, think again, your hands are on the floor, your chest is lifting up, your shoulder blades are really sucking together here. Think like you're wrinkling that yoga mat. Inhale, reach up. Really slow on that motion too. On the way back, you want to really control that return. If your hand is kind of slingshotting with that band, we're losing some of that strength in this exercise. So again, pull back towards the floor. Let's do maybe 3 more like this. Nice long pause. Squeeze your shoulder blades. Told you you'd get tired of me saying this tonight. Good. Back up towards the ceiling. Take a deep breath in. 2 more. Pull back. Hands to floor, chest up, shoulders together. Good. Last one here. Inhale up. Exhale back. Good. And slowly let go of that band. No snapping here. We'll set that down. We still somehow went a little bit over there than our planned time. I think that's going to conclude our class here today, guys. So, hope that felt good for y'all. A lot of upper back mobility. I think you kind of see the theme we're after today. I had plans to sort of relate this to your yoga practice, assuming you'll have some degree of practice, but at the very least, I hope this draws some awareness to the moving pieces that is our shoulder. Your cues in your yoga practice, your exercise routine, even at your desk, and you just promote a little more mobility through your day and think about where that movement is happening. If there's pain happening in that shoulder, it's always a good idea to just kind of maybe seek an opinion from a medical professional or see if you can do anything to sort of promote different or better mobility in that whole complex of anatomy we talked about today. Okay, I'm done yapping at y'all. Does anyone have any questions about anything here? I love questions. I love anatomy. I could talk about it all night. Anyone?
I do. Hi, I'm Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
When we were in Twisted Snow Angel,
yes,
you said there was another one. I actually felt that plenty, but I was curious about what your alternative stretch was for that same thing.
Yeah. Is there what usually comes to mind is using a foam roller? Do you have a foam roller by any chance?
I have a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. So especially a 3-foot length. So one of the long ones.
Oh, I cut those all in half.
Okay. Well, if you had more than one, you could maybe just line them up next to each other. So there
yes,
was one
I could do
long
that.
cylinder. And even if and for anyone else listening or watching this later, if you don't have a foam roller, you can do the same thing with like a blanket. If you roll it up, just make it a nice tight cylinder, something that you can lay on your back. So it's laying along your spine, your head is rested on it, and your tailbone is rested on it. And what that does when you lay back in that shape, if you haven't done this already, Debbie, it really fulcrums the shoulders open a lot more, and it gets a lot more openness in the chest. And then when you kind of perform those snow angels, you feel much more pec flexibility. That's usually my preferred way to do that, but I know not everyone at home has that tool available to them. So I kind of just modified that twisted twisted snow angel
Right.
sort of to get a little more
Yeah.
motion in there. But there's other cues, especially if you're on that roller, on that bolster, on that blanket, whatever it is. We want the chest open, and then you do that little kickstand with the hand, head turn in the opposite direction, and then when you do that sort of motion, it's stretching a lot of things. It's also kind of bleeding over into a little bit of what we call a nerve flossing technique. So it does start.
Yeah, I definitely felt it as nerve flossing.
So
It's
it is kind of
great.
provocative, depending on if you have nerve symptoms going on or other types of conditions. But it's stretching a lot of the fascia in your pectora, in your pectorals, bicep, your wrist flexors. A lot of stuff going on there. So that's usually the next kind of step to that exercise I like. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot out of that because I'm a massage therapist, and my forearms are always tight and all that stuff.
Have we,
My other,
I was going to say, have we met before?
I don't know if we've actually met. We may have.
Your name just sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I taught at OSH. I taught at OSH yoga with Chantel.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah. So my other question is, are you doing these classes on a regular basis? I got a lot out of this, and I love this. Short class.
When I hear things like that, I'm only motivated to do so. Right now, this is maybe the third one I've taught with in association with Chantel's membership.
Mm-hmm.
If it is beneficial, I could easily do 1 or 2 a month. I kind of like to mix just a little bit of anatomy with just some kind of simple movement. So yes, if that's something on your mind, I'd love to do more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally interested. You're really clear in your instructions.
Oh, great. That's good. That's good to know. Sometimes I get caught up in all the lefts and rights and things like that, but good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to meet you and see you, Debbie. Stay tuned. I'm sure you can see either on my Facebook or Chantel's if we have more classes in the future. I think we did one on hip and lower back, pelvic stability as well. I think maybe next time I'll just do one strictly on TheraBands. So a lot of people have those, tools at their disposal. Very low tech, but very effective when you use them well. Yeah. Any other sort of areas of the body you'd like to see addressed in a class like that?
Well, actually, I'm going through PT for hip flexors and just got tons out of that. And we just started on doing some, now that I cleared out my big stuff, my tweaky shoulder. So this was when that came up, that was great. So actually, yeah, more twists, always hips, always hip flexors, all that stuff.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We're in the end of March here, so maybe like mid-April we'll do another one.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to meet you, Debbie, and
nice to meet you.
Good luck with those hip flexors.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if I don't see anything from anyone else, I'll call that an evening. Hope you all got some value out of this. You can always reach out. Again, my name's Blake Testa. If anyone doesn't know me, you can always reach out to me, or you can find me on Facebook under Crux Chiropractic as well. So, all right, I'll leave it at that. Y'all have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.